Have you ever walked past a dumpster and been like, yo, I wonder what's in that dumpster?
Either put on these glasses or start eating that trash.
Yeah, there's a baby in our garbage can.
Yes! Yes! That's the kind of energy I'm talking about. That's the kind of energy I want to feel!
You're listening to the True Crime Dumpster podcast with hosts Amy, Ann,
Kevin,
and
Mason,
who is our special guest host as we are up here in Portland.
sunny Portland, Oregon.
Ice storm Portland.
It's beautiful. Me and Mason go way back. We started Portland's first black metal band together. Mm-hmm. And The Infernal was the name of that. Good times there. And he has gone from there, and he's an entrepreneur and Portland celebrity. In some circles.
Infamous.
Infamous
Most
is a good
hated.
word.
Most hated.
So one of the things that Mason has quite a bit of knowledge of is professional wrestling, because you're a professional wrestler, right?
I physically look like one, just 5 feet shorter than a normal wrestler. But I got the girth.
Gotcha. So when did you become a wrestling fan?
Well, my family was always really ingrained in Portland wrestling. My mom's friend growing up was the wife of a Portland wrestler, Haru Sasaki. So I've always just been a big wrestling fan. My family really weren't fans like me, but I was just always just in love with wrestling ever since I was a kid. You know, heavy metal and wrestling, you know, go hand in hand. And horror movies, they all go hand in hand.
Dude stuff. You wouldn't get it, Amy.
No, I get it. There's some wrestlers I like.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably lots of wrestlers you like because they're so hot.
They're so hunky.
I think it's the haircuts.
But there is definitely a dark side to wrestling. Is that right?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of drugs, a lot of sex, a lot of, just a lot of bad stuff.
Why is that the dark side? That sounds pretty fun.
So what are some memorable, like, I don't know, when it comes to like true crime and stuff, what are the first things that come to mind when you think about like wrestling? Like the people that come to mind?
Well, the main one, the most popular one is definitely Chris Benoit. Mm-hmm. I'm sure everyone knows the story about him murdering his wife and child and then killing himself.
And if you don't, that's kind of what this episode's about.
Yes.
You haven't put that one together yet.
Yeah. A very tragic, very sad story. Mm-hmm. Very fucked up story. But yeah, such is life.
And not a case that we'll be discussing today, but you were telling me, I keep getting the name wrong, but about Snuka. Like, yeah. Can you just tell us a little anecdote about that? Snuka, not Snooki.
Snuka.
Yeah.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Yeah, he supposedly murdered his his girlfriend in the 80s. Murdered her in his motel room, beat her to death before one of his matches.
And this was back in the 80s?
Yeah. I think he beat her really badly, and then she died while he was at the match, and he came back and she was dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So she died from whatever he did to her. And it's a big cover up. He said she slipped and fell. It was just, it's pretty freaking awful,
And then where does Vince McMahon play in all of this, and who is he?
Well, Vince McMahon is the promoter, owner of the WWF, the biggest WWE now, the biggest pro wrestling organization in the world. As the story goes, Superfly Snuka was one of his top draws at the time, and he didn't want the bad notoriety, obviously, and wanted to get his guy off, and he, showed up at the little town that the crime occurred with a suitcase full of money and paid off everybody, and it went away until just recently. When it all came out again. Some reporter dug up the story, and it drew interest in the story, and it got back into the limelight. I'm not sure. I think he was convicted of the crime post-mortem because he was he was too sick to stand trial. He had dementia, and so they didn't have him stand trial, and he died like I think weeks after weeks after the trial. You know,
where's Vince McMahon sit in all of that with his suitcase of money?
Where does he sit? I mean, he just paid off and just it was bad for business.
He wasn't implicated in any of it.
No, it was all hearsay, but this is in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, suitcases of money make lots of things go away.
Yep.
Tried and true.
So, just for the people like who don't myself, I don't quite know as much about wrestling as you guys. Like, what are?
I'll show you the camel clutch later.
What are the different? Is there just one company now, or are there several? Like, who folded over the years?
Oh, there's many companies now. There's two major ones. Well, there's three major ones. There's New Japan in Japan, obviously, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and WWE right now. Yeah.
So WWF is gone.
Well, it's just WWE. They had to change.
Is it because of the World Wildlife Fund?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Fucking hippies.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, they had to change the name.
Really?
Yep.
All right, well, let's get into this shit. So some say professional wrestling is fake.
Is it, Mason?
It's well.
We're gonna get into it. Just a bunch of roided out maniacs in tights acting out a play. Not totally wrong. While professional wrestling is scripted with storylines and predetermined winners and losers, the level of athleticism and the commitment to the art is very real. Also very real are the injuries sustained and the cumulative effects of years of head trauma and concussions. Same with professional football players and boxers. These head injuries can lead to dangerous personality disorders and violence. Chris Benoit is a prime example of this. Christopher Michael Benoit was a Canadian professional wrestler. During his 22-year career, he worked for numerous promotions, including WWF, WWE, we just talked about that, WCW, which was World Championship Wrestling.
And that doesn't exist anymore?
No. WWE bought it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, folded it.
And then there was ECW, which is Extreme Championship Wrestling.
WWE bought that too.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned earlier, New Japan Pro Wrestling. And
that was in your bio?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So Chris Benoit he's seen as one of the greatest of all times of wrestling.
Yeah.
His style was...
His nickname was the Wolverine, because he looked like a Wolverine. He was short and ripped.
Brick shithouse.
He was a brick shithouse.
Yeah. Canada turns out a lot of brick shithouses.
Yeah.
Very polite ones. So Benoit was born in Montreal, Quebec, May 21st, 1967, the son of Michael and Margaret Benoit. The family moved to Edmonton, Alberta when Chris was young. His attraction to wrestling started early. At 12 years old, Benoit went to a match where Tom Dynamite Kid Billington and Bret Hart both performed, leaving a lasting impression. Benoit would even adopt some of these moves later on, namely Bret Hart's signature sharpshooter finishing hold. Am I correct?
You are correct. I forgot about that, yeah.
What's
right.
a sharpshooter finishing hold? Can you describe it?
Here, get on the floor.
Yeah. Basically, your opponent lies on his stomach, and you sit on his back and pull his legs up like over your shoulder, like you're bending him back. I guess that's the way I can describe it.
So Benoit starts training to become a wrestler himself at the Hart family dungeon under the instruction of Stu Hart. Thank you, creature. Stu Hart's the family patriarch and head of the Hart wrestling family. During the period when Stu Hart was regularly training individuals at the school, it held a reputation for being one of the harshest wrestling schools in the world. Graduating from it was considered very impressive and something which would be brought up on air on televised wrestling shows. Hart himself also garnered a reputation for being borderline sadistic in his training techniques and was known to torture his pupils with his grueling regiments. Buddy Roberts, do you know who he is? Mm-hmm. That's good. He described the place quote, like a torture chamber. In contrast to his descendants, Stu never took money for his training services and did it mostly for the love of the art form of professional wrestling. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Benoit said in a WWE interview of this place, quote, I take a lot of pride in being one of the last guys that had the hands-on training from Stu Hart when I went to the Hart family to train. It was a good experience just to be there, to imagine all the people that had been there, though, and all the blood, sweat, and tears that had been paid. Going to the Hart family for training was kind of like if you're a very religious person going to the Vatican.
What's Bret Hart known more for? Was that the sharpshooter guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
What was his? Did he have like a wrestling name?
Hitman.
Oh.
The excellence of execution was his little tagline. Or the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. He was like a ring general. He was like one of the best technical wrestlers ever to this day.
Aside from professional wrestlers, the dungeon provided training grounds for various athletes from strongmen to football players.
That I did not know.
Yeah. The internet's full of information.
Yeah.
The dungeon went on to become involved in the wrestling world. So people that went to that place, obviously Bret and Owen Hart. Mm-hmm. But other graduates were Billy Graham, Greg Valentine, Alan Coage, Davey Boy Smith. I remember him.
Yep.
Brian Pillman, Jushin Thunder Liger, Ricky Fuji, Chris Jericho, Lance Storm. Yeah, so a whole slew. Benoit began his career in 1985 in Stu Hart's Stampede Wrestling promotion. From the beginning, similarities between Benoit and Billington were apparent, as Benoit adopted many of his moves, such as the diving headbutt and the snap suplex. The homage was complete with his initial billing as Dynamite Chris Benoit.
All right, the diving headbutt seems self-explanatory, but what's a snap suplex?
It's just a real fast suplex. A suplex is just flipping somebody over your head on their back. Yeah, and he would just do it just really aggressively.
And even though they're acting, like, this shit really hurts, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's ways they call it taking a bump. There's a ways to take the bump where you're not going to hurt yourself as bad. They know how to land flat on their back and not on their shoulder or their head. So that's what the training is for. It's basically how to take bumps.
Mm.
Right, because the person getting hit is the one really performing the move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. If you're just sandbagging everything, those snap suplexes are going to look like shit. But if you're going with it and you know how to take it,
sell it.
Yeah, sell it. Exactly. Yeah. Then, that's what it's about.
So according to Benoit, in his first match, he attempted the diving headbutt before learning how to land correctly and had the wind knocked out of him. He said he would never do the move again at that point. Yet, this flying headbutt would become one of his signature moves, one that obviously might not be too good for the old noggin. But this is just one way Benoit turned his brain to Swiss cheese. There are many more over the span of his career, like steel chairs to the back of the head. In boxing, you can't even punch someone in the back of the head, and this dude was taking steel chairs to it. His dedication to the sport is really amazing. So, basically, Benoit spent 22 years of his life concussed, and that's not too good for the brain. So Benoit began wrestling in Japan in the NLPW, the New Japan Wrestling Organization, in '86 under his real name. And in '89, he started wearing a mask and assuming the name the Pegasus Kid.
Why is it the Pegasus Kid?
Japan.
Japan. Oh, it's a Japan thing?
Yeah, Japan, they always...
Because that doesn't sound tough at all.
Yeah, Japan has really bizarre gimmicks that I never really understand. But yeah, a lot of them
they made
masks.
up Mothra, too, so...
Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah, no,
Terrifying.
Mexico and Japan, they're really into masks. Not so much Japan anymore, but in, the 90s, a lot of masks.
So
did he have a Pegasus mask?
I think it had it had little wings on it. If I remember correctly, I think they were just embroidered on the mask though. Gotcha. I don't think they were
it was
wings.
like a Hello Kitty with wings.
Yeah.
So Benoit said numerous times that originally he hated the mask, but it kind of became part of him. While with the NJPW, he came into his own as a performer. In August 1990, he won his first major championship, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, from Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yep.
I can't say that very well. Wrestling in Japan is a bit more extreme than in the States. The fans are more rabid, and they demand more insane, high-flying, dangerous moves. The
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Japanese fans are very conservative. Like, they sit down the entire match.
There's no like cheering or necessarily.
No, and then they politely clap. You know, I would say the matches are a lot more stiff and more realistic, but they're very conservative in the arenas.
Well,
Do you regularly watch Japanese pro wrestling?
No, I mean I do, but I'm not a big Japanese wrestling fan.
Gotcha.
someone lied to me.
The internet.
But yeah, it seems like Japanese people kind of take some things. I mean, they are quiet people usually, but like in like, you know, punk rock and stuff, like some of those fuckers look insane. Like it's like more extreme than you know.
Well, they love American monsters. Like when I say monsters, I mean like monster wrestlers. Like when the Road Warriors went to Japan, they were huge. Giant Baba was like this monster of a Japanese man, and he was probably the biggest wrestler ever in Japan. They just love like larger than life Americans.
So Benoit first came to World Championship Wrestling, or the WCW, in June of '92, teaming up with fellow Canadian wrestler Biff Wellington for the NWA World Tag Team Championship tournament, where they were defeated by Brian Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger in the first round at Clash of the Champions. In August '94, Benoit began working with Extreme Championship Wrestling in between tours of Japan. He was booked as a dominant wrestler there, gaining notoriety as the Crippler. At November to Remember, Benoit accidentally broke Sabu's neck within the opening seconds of a match. The injury came when Benoit threw Sabu with the intention that he take a face-first pancake bump, but Sabu attempted to turn mid-air and take a backdrop bump instead. He did not achieve full rotation and landed almost directly on his neck. Benoit was distraught over possibly paralyzing one of his co-workers, but was living up to his name.
Yeah.
Did Sabu get paralyzed?
No.
Because, I think they fought fairly recently after that or something.
Yeah, Sabu is still wrestling.
Oh, well.
Right.
Maybe it was good for his neck. So after impressing higher-ups with his work, he was approached by Ric Flair and the WCW booking staff to become a member of the reformed Four Horsemen in 1995, along Flair, Arn Anderson, and Brian Pillman. He was brought in to add a new dynamic for Anderson and Flair's tormenting of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage in their alliance to end Hulkamania. Exciting times. Mm-hmm. During this time is when Benoit meets Kevin Sullivan. Sullivan was a member of the Dungeon of Doom who teamed up with the Four Horsemen for some events. He had a, quote, satanic persona and also a wife that was part of his shtick. She was the fallen angel, Nancy Sullivan. And they'd wear, quote, evil makeup and take scary pictures. And that was the extent of their Satanism.
Can you, Mason, talk about the women in wrestling a little bit? Are they always like part of the act? Are they wrestler? Like, what's up with?
Well,
like women in wrestling, like professional wrestling.
There's always been women wrestlers. You know, Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young, just to name a few, name a couple. There's always been female wrestling, but it's never really been very big until now. Like 2 WrestleManias ago, like the women headlined WrestleMania, which was like the first ever. Women were usually just valets, you know, or a manager. But there was women wrestlers, but they were just kind of like mid-card, opening the show type stuff. But now they are just, you know, as popular as the men for the most part, you know.
China was the first like big one in as far as like wrestling goes, right?
Physically. yeah, physically. You know, there were, you know, like Wendy Richter was really big. She wrestled the Fabulous Moolah in one of the early WrestleManias with Cyndi Lauper by her side.
Oh, right.
You know what I
Wow.
mean? So
I remember those days.
They were, you know, women have always been, you know, right up there, but you know, recently it's really taken off. But it's just like MMA. Women in MMA was awful for a while. There's not a lot of talent, but now the women, they're taken seriously, so they wrestle just as hard as the guys. Just like in MMA, they headline UFC cards, you know, because they train just like the guys now. They didn't in the old days.
But the fallen angel Nancy Sullivan, who is Kevin Sullivan's wife or partner, was she a wrestler?
No, she was just a valet. She was just a really...
So when you say valet...
A manager. Just a girl who comes out and like...
But she's kind of part of his act too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They came out and she like distracts the babyface. And Kevin Sullivan was a heel. So she would give Kevin Sullivan the foreign object and hit the babyface with it. That kind of thing, you know.
How do you feel about that? I mean, is it just added to the whole theater of it,
Yeah,
or?
of course.
Oh yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
So at some point, Sullivan, who also booked and wrote a lot of the storylines for WCW, he scripted a feud between him and Benoit. I think at this time, Nancy dropped the Fallen Angel moniker and went simply by Woman, the object of every man's desire.
Did you think she was hot?
No, totally. Yeah.
So Benoit and Nancy started a, quote, affair, and were forced to spend time together and make the affair look real, like hold hands in public and share hotel rooms and stuff. And there's a bunch of like funny, you know, what do you call it, like spots or whatever, where they film like almost like commercials where they're like in
promos.
bed, like in bed together, and it's like really cheesy.
Yeah.
So Benoit wasn't too keen on the idea of this affair because he was married to his first wife, Martina, who was pregnant at the time. Benoit had 2 children with his first wife. People say Sullivan, quote, booked his own divorce because not too long after starting this pseudo affair, the shit got real. Chris and Nancy fell in love for reals. And I'm sure that was a fun conversation Benoit had with Martina over that one.
But also, there was more to it than that, right? Was it something with like Kevin Sullivan, like he was being accused of like abusing Nancy?
He was, but he denies it completely, and he's had no history of anything like that. So I can't even comment on it.
It seems a little suspect.
Yeah.
Reading on some of the stuff that Kevin Sullivan was saying during this time was like him and Nancy just kind of grew apart like naturally. And, it was just kind of an inevitable thing. They're going to get a divorce. Yeah. So it wasn't completely out of left field for him, but I think for Benoit's wife, it might have been just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in Dark Side of the Ring, it really does kind of capitalize on Nancy being a victim of Sullivan's.
Yeah.
And like very much like needing to leave Sullivan and Benoit being like her savior. Which kind of adds a whole extra element to it too.
That's what they say, but I listened to a podcast with Kevin Sullivan. Kevin Sullivan, out of respect to Nancy, has never even spoken about the Benoit.
Wow.
Ever, until after that episode. And he did a podcast with Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette is a Hall of Fame wrestling manager who has probably the most popular podcast of wrestling podcasts right now. And he broke his silence after the Dark Side of the Ring, and gave his side of the story. And I can't really say verbatim what he said, but it was very convincing. Yeah. He was like, I've never done anything like that, and no one ever accused me of that until just recently, where it's become more of a
sensationalized
yeah. And I tend to believe him. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, what we're going to find out is she's not going to be alive for much longer to tell her side of the story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, she's dead.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Nancy became pregnant with their son Daniel in November 23rd of the year 2000, and Benoit and Nancy got married. Friends say they've never seen Chris so happy. Nancy too. But in 2003, Nancy filed for divorce from Benoit, citing the marriage as irrevocably broken and alleging cruel treatment. Is that true?
Irrevocably.
I wasn't there.
She claimed that he would break and throw furniture around, She later dropped the suit as well as the restraining order.
But isn't that what pro wrestlers do?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, maybe he was just training. So we'll get back to Nancy and Daniel later. Let's talk about Eddie Guerrero for a sec. So Benoit became good friends with fellow wrestler Eddie Guerrero following a match in Japan when Benoit kicked Guerrero in the head and knocked him out cold. That's how old great relationships are, right?
Yeah, tell us what you know about Eddie Guerrero. Was he a good wrestler?
Oh yeah, he was a great wrestler. I can't remember what was his.
Oh, his name.
Yeah, Latino Heat or something like that. He was a real character, and I think his niece is Sasha Banks in WWE. Now I could be wrong, but he was awesome.
So Benoit and Guerrero become really close friends and traveled everywhere together. There's tons of photos of them together. They're both always super happy, smiling. There's rumors that these two were more than friends, but we're not going there.
What?
Just gonna throw that in there?
That's I went down a couple rabbit holes, and you know how the fucking internet is. Everyone's fucking gay.
That's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. So professional wrestlers are basically always in pain, from injuries to fatigue or from being on the road for so long. Some wrestlers are on the road for like 300 plus days of the year. It's fucking crazy. So many turn to drugs and alcohol for comfort. And Eddie Guerrero, unfortunately,
pills over
painkillers. Yeah. So Eddie Guerrero went down that path, and he had some dark days.
They call it the sickness in pro wrestling. Once you get the sickness, they pull you off TV, they pull you off the road. When you start getting super addicted to pills and drugs and the lifestyle.
So I'm not sure how much into drugs Chris was.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
It's not like a known, it's not like super popular.
He was. I'd never heard of him being a pillhead or an alcoholic or anything like that.
But it sounds like things got pretty fucked up for Eddie for some time. So Eddie Guerrero did come back from all that and turn that part of his life around. And on March 14th, 2004, at Madison Square Garden in New York City at WrestleMania 20, the main match for the SmackDown brand featured Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, which Guerrero won. Chris Benoit also won his match. The main match for the Raw brand was a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship between champion Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit.
Did you watch that fight?
I don't even know. I've seen so much. I don't know if I saw that one or not.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Wrestling was always on at the house.
Yes.
So Benoit won, making Triple H submit via the Crippler Crossface, resulting in his first and only world championship in the WWE.
What's the Crippler Cross? Is that a move?
Yeah, it's.
It's not a turd, babe.
What?
It's basically your opponent's on their stomach. You're sitting on their back with your hands crossed over their chin, pulling their head up.
Sounds nice.
Or actually, you're not sitting on the opponent's. You are sitting on the side of the opponent, like on the side of them, as they're on their stomach, pulling their head up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know what Eddie Guerrero's signature move was?
Frog splash. Yep.
I love that you. Yep. Frog splash.
Yep.
What's that?
Jumping off the top rope and just landing right on your stomach on top of the guy. With a lot of height in it.
Yeah.
The end of the night, it was Guerrero and Benoit in the ring, hugging with confetti and stuff. And it was like the apex of Guerrero's comeback or whatever from...
Yep.
Yeah, and like in the documentary, Chris Benoit's son from a previous marriage said like he wished that Chris Benoit would have just died right there. Like he's like, I wish my dad would have just died right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been like at his peak.
Yeah.
Would you say that this is the peak of his career?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
On November 13th, 2005, Guerrero was found unconscious in his hotel room. His nephew Chavo found him on the floor, and Guerrero died in his arms. This devastated Benoit. The next couple shows from the WWF were tributes to Eddie, with his fellow wrestlers paying respects, and when Benoit goes, he totally falls apart. Super hard to watch. Guerrero's death changed Benoit. He became more reclusive, his friends would say. Not long after, another one of Benoit's close friends died. Was that
Brian Pillman.
Is that who it was?
Brian, I think so. Yeah.
So.
And do you know why Brian Pillman died or anything?
Drugs, same thing. I think he had a heart attack or OD'd or something.
So it's fairly common in the wrestling community to maybe like die young and have some serious drug addictions.
Yeah.
Dang.
So this totally fucked up Benoit, and he was a changed man, but he kept on wrestling, probably because it was the only thing he knew. He won several more titles and was slated to be the ECW World Champion, but didn't show up to the event. The 2 days previous, Benoit didn't show up, and he said his family was vomiting blood. So when he didn't show up for the championship, viewers were informed that he was unable to compete due to a family emergency, and he was replaced in the title match by Johnny Nitro. On June 25th, 2007, police entered Benoit's home in Fayetteville, Georgia, when WWE requested a welfare check after Benoit missed the weekend events without notice. The officers discovered the bodies of Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel at around 2:30 p.m. Upon investigating, no additional suspects were sought by authorities. It was determined that Benoit had committed the murders.
Yeah, and it also is kind of interesting too, because I heard that the police couldn't get into the house because he had like dogs that were really vicious.
Yeah.
And so they like asked the neighbor to do it or something.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And then so actually the first person to find the bodies was actually the neighbor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whew.
Yeah, the police don't want to get bit, so they're like, here, citizen, get in there. So over a 3-day period, Benoit had killed his wife and son before committing suicide himself. His wife was bound before the killing, and Benoit's son was drugged with Xanax and likely unconscious before Benoit strangled him. Benoit then committed suicide by hanging himself on his lat pull-down machine. That's crazy to just...
Yeah.
The whole thing's crazy, actually.
Yeah.
So WWE canceled the scheduled 3-hour-long live Raw show on June 25th and replaced the broadcast version with a 3-hour tribute to Benoit's life and career, featuring his past matches and segments from the Hard Knocks Chris Benoit Story DVD, and comments from wrestlers and announcers. They didn't know at this time that Benoit killed his family yet, just that he committed suicide. And I think I heard from the last podcast on the left episode about this, that Vince McMahon heard about Chris killing his wife and son during this tribute to Benoit. And that must have been pretty fucked up for him.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day that this happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was your thoughts?
Well, no one really knew what was going on. So we just knew that he died. We didn't know he murdered his family. So we just thought it was, just another tragic drug overdose or, heart attack or something like that.
Were there a lot of people like maybe thinking that he didn't kill his wife? Like, is there any kind of conspiracy around that or anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people who don't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what the conspiracy might be to some extent?
That I don't know. They just think it might have been a burglar or something,
okay.
But who could kill Chris Benoit?
Yeah,
You
really.
know what I mean?
That's true.
It's like, who's going to take him out?
Yeah.
Come on.
So toxicology reports released on July 17th, 2007 revealed that at their time of death, Nancy had 3 different drugs in her system: Xanax, hydrocodone, and hydromorphone, all of which were found at therapeutic rather than toxic levels. Daniel was found to have Xanax in his system, which led to the chief medical examiner to believe that he was sedated before he was murdered. Benoit was found to have Xanax, hydrocodone, and an elevated level of testosterone, caused by the synthetic form of the hormone in his system. There's no indication that anything in Benoit's body contributed to this violent behavior that led to the murder-suicide, concluding that there was no roid rage involved. After the double murder-suicide, former wrestler Christopher Nowinski contacted Michael Benoit, Chris's father, suggesting that years of trauma to his son's brain may have led to his actions. Tests were concluded on Benoit's brain by Julian Bales, the head of neurosurgery at West Virginia University. And results showed that Benoit's brain was so severely damaged, it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Alzheimer's.
That's why you're here, babe.
And also, didn't Vince McMahon try to use that wording to make it seem like he had Alzheimer's, therefore it wasn't like his fault or anything.
Yeah.
Like I don't think Vince McMahon is going to listen to this podcast, so you can speak freely. Did he do some shady ass shit to kind of like shirk off any like responsibility over the years?
Well, Vince McMahon is always getting sued by
everyone,
but everyone for CTE. He's always like every year.
That's the brain injury stuff, right?
Yeah. So he's always getting sued. He just got sued recently. He it got thrown out of court, but people are always going after him for being responsible for.
Do you think he deserves it?
No.
Okay.
Because he's just one promotion.
Yeah.
There's tons of wrestling promotions out there. He's just one of many. He's the biggest one, but I mean, does the Roger Goodall, is he responsible for all the guys in the NFL who have CTE? It's just it's the game. You know?
And it's like he's not making people wrestle or play football. It's like they know the risks.
Yeah.
I guess
it's like McDonald's having to fucking put on their coffee cups. Coffee's hot. Yeah.
It's
like, no shit.
But do you think Vince McMahon maybe did he react appropriately in this case, or do you feel like maybe?
Well, probably not. If he said, if he thought it was Alzheimer's, I don't really remember that too well. But I mean, if he did say something like that, I'm sure he knows better. But he is a billionaire businessman,
similar to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah.
So Benoit was reported to have an advanced form of dementia, similar to the brains of retired NFL players who had suffered multiple concussions, and he sank into depression and harmed themselves or others, or I guess 4 other NFL players rather. Bales and his colleagues concluded that repeated concussions can lead to dementia, which can contribute to severe behavioral problems. No shit. Benoit's father suggests that the brain damage may have been the leading cause of the crime. Yeah, I think you're right. Once the details of Benoit's actions became apparent, the WWE made the decision to remove nearly all mentions of Benoit from their website and from future broadcasts in all publications.
Did this event or like other events, did it change like any rules with like wrestling or anything like that? Do you know?
No.
It's just as dangerous now as it was potentially 20 years ago?
No. If we're just going to speak about the WWE, there's so many promotions. They don't do chair shots to the head anymore.
Okay. Did that die with Benoit?
It didn't die with Benoit. They just matured and were like, this is unneeded to do this crazy stuff.
I think they moved on to tables.
Well, they put people through tables and they'll hit each other in the back with chairs, but nothing to the head anymore.
Yeah. Is that a bummer for you?
No.
So, what do you think?
What do I think happened with Benoit?
I mean, that's part of what we do on this podcast too. Is we kind of hear the quote unquote facts.
Yeah.
And then, like if your opinion differs or what you think happened, or if you feel like, watching Benoit for years and maybe knowing a little bit about him.
Yeah. No,
I think what
think
could have been going through his head.
I think that flying headbutt, he, did that for how many years? It's just really
22. It says here.
Yeah, it's a really dumb move. You're flying off the top rope and landing on your head. If you're just doing that,
repeatedly.
300 days a year, just taking a big hardcore Mike Tyson blow to the head every single day, you're gonna lose your mind.
And then, what do you think in terms of like the Guerrero and Pillman deaths? Do you think that potentially contributed to it as well?
Yeah. I'm sure. They had CTE also, and then tried to numb it with drugs and alcohol, and they got the sickness and OD'd and died. And I'm sure it all started with pain from wrestling. They get prescribed pills, and then they get addicted.
Benoit being affected by their deaths. Do you think that was maybe a trigger? I don't know.
Definitely. He just never got over it. From what I've seen and what I've heard, is that he just never got over it. Like most people, when someone dies, they grieve, and they may always miss the person, but they come to grips with it.
Yeah.
He just never came to grips with it. Every day was just as bad as the first day with him. And he was emotionally like a child because of, I think from the flying headbutts for all those years, he was just so brain damaged. He just never could get over it. He couldn't his brain stopped working that way. So he was just a mess every single day. Every day was just as bad.
Yeah, but it does kind of make you wonder, like, if you're, having those holes in your brain and like, what brings you to the brink of, like, why murder your family?
Yeah,
I know you can't answer that.
Yeah,
but...
I honestly don't know. He was just in a really, really dark space, and he probably just wanted to leave and get out, and didn't want to leave his family alone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And that is total direct, like, textbook definition of a family annihilator is like, there's the family annihilators who are like doing out of mercy, like you could never live without me,
Yep.
And then there's the there's all kinds of different family annihilators, but I think he kind of falls in the camp of like, do you think he falls in the camp of like, do you think he was suicidal and he took his family with him? Or do you think that there was something else? Like, I mean, that it seems like maybe he was in the camp of like he wanted to kill himself and didn't want to leave his family alone.
I almost think he went crazy one night, killed his wife in a rage, and then was like, well, now I just have to kill everybody. I can't have my... what I mean? Like, now I can't leave my son alone, who was handicapped.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we didn't talk about his son too much. Did he have a
learning disability? Yeah, I'm not sure what it was, but I think he was like, I can't leave my son alone in this world. So
with his wife, it could have been out of rage, and then it may have been like out of mercy, or like or that kind of like like a mercy killing for his son, and then suicide.
Yeah.
All right, final thoughts on wrestling, Mason.
Final thoughts on wrestling.
Are you gonna do it?
Yeah. Well, I'm 46 years old now, so nope.
So on your 50th birthday? Big match.
No wrestling for me. I'll just be a fan. But yeah.
Do you watch it like religiously every week?
I watch AEW every week. It's like the new promotion that is trying to jockey for the number one spot with WWE.
I haven't heard of that one before, so that's new, huh?
Yeah, it's owned by the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So It's like the only person who has as much money as Vince McMahon to like.
Is that football?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So it's like the only promotion that could ever compete with Vince McMahon, because this guy has deep pockets too. So I watch that. WWE is pretty freaking bad these days.
Oh yeah.
So,
who are some of the wrestlers that are even around still?
From the old days that are still around?
Or that are notable, I guess.
Well, The Undertaker just had his last match.
Oh.
Yeah.
How old is he?
Oh, geez, I don't know. He's got to be old, though.
Yeah.
He's got to be...
Has he been around since, like, the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Did he ever fight Benoit?
I'm sure they did wrestle. I can't think of the top of my head, but I'm sure they wrestled. Yeah. But he's sort of still around. I mean, he just retired, but he's, just recently retired. Yeah, as far as the old guys, Kane's still around. Randy Orton's still around. The Rock comes back every once in a while, makes special appearances.
What about Hulk?
No.
Has he done anything in a while?
He makes special appearances on WWE. He just comes out and
sex tapes.
He makes sex tapes. Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't really do it. He's really old.
I had a really big crush on Hulk Hogan growing up.
Really?
I know. My crushes were very weird. Kato Kalin, Hulk Hogan.
Kato Kalin?
Yeah,
Kato Kalin. You remember Kato Kalin, right?
Yeah.
I think I liked that kind of washed up, rockery, blonde vibe thing.
She still does.
I can say I can see the washed up rocker thing.
Oh, and also Sebastian Bach, but he's still hot. Like, he's very good looking even to this day.
You think so?
To this day, he's still good looking.
He's so bloated.
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, he's no you, but...
Oh, who is?
So, never gonna do the professional wrestling then? Okay.
No.
Really, Amy? I want to see a match right now. You're gonna do the turtle smash. Or whatever.
She's admiring
Frog
the body.
splash.
I just can't imagine me not wanting to wrestle.
I think she just wants to see you in tights.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also when we were watching it the other night, They do Speedos, shorts, or pants, which if you were a professional wrestler...
Pants. Pants.
What about you, Kevin?
Smile. I'll wear a smile. That'll be my tactic. So like no one wants to touch me. I'll just be naked.
Nice.
Yeah. I win every match. Easy money.
Chris Benoit wore pants. Just so you know.
Oh, okay. That's more of a
It's the Canadian thing to do.
Trunks are like the ultimate
Hulk
classic.
Hogan wore
trunks.
little Speedos, didn't he?
Yeah, they call them trunks, but yeah.
Oh, trunks.
Yeah.
Because there's also like the little hot shorts too, though.
Yeah, that's more of a newer thing.
Oh, that's the newer thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just had to ask my questions about their attire.
Of course, he's asking what kind of underwear they're wearing.
Do they wear underwear? Have there ever been slip-ups? Like with costumes?
Yeah, I've never...
Like a nip slip?
Well, yeah. I think they're all nipple all the time.
A dick slip? I've never seen a dick slip.
Oh, okay.
Never heard of a dick slip either.
Oh, okay. They must really have that on lockdown.
Yeah.
These guys are pros, babe. So you can join our True Crime Dumpster Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter at TC Dumpster and on Instagram, True Crime Dumpster. You can email us at truecrimedumpster@gmail.com. Listen to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, and now YouTube. And there's some other platforms out there. Just look for The Dumpster. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends about our podcast. Every review, rating, and referral helps us to get a larger audience. Tune in next time as we continue talking out the trash.
And also, if you're ever in Portland and want to go see Mason's Muscles and Strippers, you can go to Club Desire on Columbia.
There we go. Yep. Desire, 535 Northeast Columbia Boulevard, Portland, Oregon.
Anything else you want to say?
I think I'm good. I think we're good, guys.
I think we're good. That's a wrap.
Bye, Dumpster World.